Hey buddy, I hope you're doing well. So .NET Core middleware. So before we jump into .NET Core middleware, let me tell you the ancestors of .NET Core middleware, how it evolved. So if you go into old time, in .NET framework, there is something called HTTP handlers. If you go to .NET MVC, there is something called action filters. If you go to your front-end languages, there is something called HTTP interceptors. So all of these things are actually a middleware. So what Microsoft has done, they renamed all of these things into middlewares and they're calling it .NET Core middleware. Right? So today's video, we are going to talk about all those little details, all the key points that you should know as a developer. We will go and write one custom middleware also, and we will also talk about the flow, how .NET Core middleware works, right? So with this, let's start. Okay, so here we are. So let's focus on the first diagram first. How the workflow of .NET Core middleware. You must understand the .NET Core middleware flow. So if you look at this diagram, you will see you make a call to your HTTP APIs. You make a call to your API endpoints, it goes to IS server where your application is hosted, and then it goes to your .NET Core CLR. After .NET Core CLR, it goes to Kestrel server of your .NET Core, and then main point is entry point is program class. So this main method exists under program class, and then your startup class. Under startup class, there is a method called configure. So we are going to talk about that as well. Understand program class and startup class, the importance of these two classes. So if you don't know these two things, you must go and watch the video that I've already created on startup and program class before, and then we can jump back here. Okay, forward, and you will see after it reach out to your configure method, which is very important for your middleware, it goes to your request pipelines, and after request pipeline, it goes to your app code. Now in the request pipeline, how it works. So request pipeline is something where all your middleware start at. So let's understand this with a real life example. Okay, so let's imagine you went to one shopping center where are different gates. On every gate there is a security guard. Now consider that security guard as a middleware. That means there are 3 gates. That means every gate has one security guard. That means 3 middlewares. You enter to that place, that security guard, that middleware will check you. That will check your HTTP request. And then over here, what it does, middleware, they may modify your request. They wanted to inject something. Maybe you are sending a header request. Hey, this this header -10 and is equal to this value. It is possible that HTTP header, what it does, it changes the value, and then it further process. Then you go to next gate where another security guard, another middleware. Now this process is called middleware. So what it does, it modify your request and response, but sequence is very important. In what sequence you go, in the same sequence you will come back, right? So the first guard will check you again where you're coming back from that shopping mall at the last. That means the middleware, the first middleware, when you are coming back, your request is coming back with your response and going back to client, it again check you at the very last, and it may modify the response, right? So this is how it works. So you should understand this diagram as well. So if you see here, we have 3 middlewares. We made a request to first middleware, and there is something called next. So this is very important. If next is not there, you can't make a call to your next middleware. So next method is very important to make a call to your next middleware. If you look at this diagram, you will see when we say next, here you see from the next, this arrow go to another middleware, and then they modify the request. Then again we are saying next, and then we are saying modify request. Over here you see there is no next. That means we are terminating this, and this is what we call terminal middleware. When we don't say next, that means this is our terminal middleware. Now from here, it goes to your service logic. Now service logic could be anything, any class that you have written where all of your logic, business logic, domain logic, entity logic, anything, that is your app code. And then when it go back over here, you will see the last middleware, it again modify the response, then it sent back to the second middleware, again modify the response, and then again first middleware, it will check at the very last, and then finally the data goes to your client side, your Postman call, your C# call, or maybe your front-end application, Angular, JavaScript, AJAX, any calls, right? So this is the flow. Now, if you look at the Visual Studio, this is our startup class, and this method is very important. This will help you to inject all of your middlewares here. Now, if you look at this first parameter, which is iApplication Builder, this is going to help you to inject, register all of your middlewares, whether it's custom middlewares or any middlewares. Now, since we are talking about custom middlewares, let me tell you there are 3 different types of middleware. First, custom middleware that we are going to create here. Second, provided by Microsoft Visual Studio by default. Third, which you can go to Nugget, install from there. Someone created Nugget packages for middleware, so you can inject that in the application. These 3 are the middlewares. Okay, so now let's see how it works. Over here you see some of the middlewares that is provided to Microsoft. One is this use developer exception page, use HSTS, routing, authentication, authorization, all of these things are right. So if we talk about the use HSTS, this is very important. Everything is important, but why I'm focusing over this, stressing over this, because this name, other things you will see are very clear from name. Use routing, that means this is for route. Authentication is for authentication, check your login authentication, token, authorization, check your role. But with this use HSTS, this is something for your SSL redirection. So whenever you make a call to HTTP, this middleware help you to redirect all those HTTP calls to HTTPS. But interesting part here is it don't work by itself. When you deploy your application for the first time, you have to tell your server, hey, I'm going to use HTTPS call, and for that first request you have to make from yourself HTTPS : //www blah blah this, and after that your server will know, okay, now I have to redirect all the HTTP call to HTTPS. So this middleware will help you in that. Okay, so now you see in the configure method there is something called this iWeb host environment. This parameter will help you to decide, hey, for which environment you wanted to inject something. Maybe for particular you have 2 different environments, stage and production. One particular logic that you wanted to check only for stage environment, second for production. So over here this parameter will help you to this. Now interesting thing about use HSTS is that it will only work on environment. It won't work over your local environment. Okay, so this thing that you need to remind. Okay, so this we talked about middlewares that is provided by Microsoft .NET Core. Okay, now let's go ahead and explore 2 important methods for middleware. One is app.run, second is app.use. Okay, so app.run is always called terminal middleware. Why? Because it don't make a call to your next middleware. That is why we are calling terminal middleware. Okay, so here you go. So let's use that method. So we are this is our method which I have saved before, so we can save some time. Okay, here you go. So this is your app.run method. With this, what we are saying, hey, whenever there is any response, whenever the data is coming back to API endpoints, no matter what sort of API endpoint /this /that, get, put, post, delete, anything, what you do, just say hello world. Replace every response, say hello world. Okay, so now let me show you, but you know what, this won't work over here. You know why? I told you the sequence is very important. So first let me show you if it works or not. So let's say IS Express run, and here you go, it should be, here you go. You see, it is still showing the data, but the expectation was all the response should be replaced by hello world, which is not happening now. Okay, so let's go back, and this is what we talked. This is very important. The sequence is very important. Okay, so let's stop this and put it on the top. So what happened, when you're using this default middlewares, they are the terminal middlewares, right? So if you say use endpoints, now it is not making a call to further middleware, and that is the reason our middleware is not working. So what we have to do, let's cut it from here and paste it here before use HTTP redirection. Okay, so now let's see what happened. So now we fix the sequence. Let's run this and see the magic. There you go. See, hello world. Now any API endpoint you make a call, it will display the same data. If you don't trust me, let me make a call to something else. Maybe let's see what other API endpoints we have. Let's go to Solution Explorer, Controller, and we have something called Get Service. Okay, so let's make a call to Get Service as well. You see, whatever API endpoint I'm making a call, it is always returning hello world, because I have middleware, response middleware, which says, hey, when you are going back, just display this response, modify the response. Perfect. Okay, now let's go ahead further. Okay, so this is terminal middleware. When you set this, you can't make a call to any other middlewares now. So there is something called app.use. But before app.use, you need to understand little details about app.run, all the little details about app.run. Okay, so if you look at the definition of .run, you will see this is an extension method of application builder. You see, this keyword make an extension of application builder, and that was the reason you were able to access with this app.run, because this is extension method. And now the first parameter of this extension, the second parameter was accepting request delegate. Request delegate is a delegate method. So if you look at the definition of request delegate, you will see it is accepting HTTP context, and that is delegate method. Look at this, it says task, that means return task. And what should be the parameters? First argument, that should be context, HTTP context, and that is, you see here, the argument is HTTP context and it is returning the task, right? So now to call this, either you can call like this through lambda expression, you can make HTTP context. If you look at this is HTTP context, or the other way that you can do, you can create your one method. You will say, hey, I'm creating one method which should return task. Okay, and let's say test method, and this is my middleware. Okay, and what should be the parameter? It should be HTTP context, say context, right? And let's see, and it should return task. What we will do, this is your context, so you can say like this. Here you go. So these are the two ways you can make a call. If you understand the definition that it return task, your request delegate, and it accept first parameter HTTP context. Now you can use this one here as well, over here, right? Or you can call through lambda expressions. So either you can use this method over here, or whatever you are doing right now. So what you can say, hey, this is my test method, and let's pass the context, right? And for sure it is task, so a sync here, and you can say await. There you go. So now you see there were two different ways. Once we understand how it works internally, we were able to create our own method instead of all those things, right? So this is how it works. Now let's jump back to app.use. Now what if there are two different middlewares and I wanted to make a call to all the middlewares? What should I have to do? So there's something called app.use, and the syntax is, so this is the syntax for app.use. If you look at this, now it has two parameters, right? Context and next. If you remember the diagram that we talked initially, that next will help you to go to next middleware, and this is what it is doing. So over here what we are doing, we are saying, hey, context.response this, and then make a call to next, return from here and go back to next. So that means like this, this thing, right? So what it is doing, we are saying, hey, in the response header, inject one header response with this value and then go back to your test method. Okay, now let me run and show. Let's run it. Okay, so here you go. So see your second middleware, and let's see if first middleware worked or not. So for that, for sure we have to refresh. Okay, here you go. If you look at the response headers now, it should be something called this is request header. Here you go, X middleware response with 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is what we were doing, right? So this is how it works. So this is how it, this is how your app.run and app.use works. So app.run is your terminal middleware. App.use will help you to make a call to next middleware because it has second parameter called next. This we have learned a lot of important things. We understand the importance of app.run, app.use. We learned that it works in sequence, how the workflow works. Now, how we can create a custom middleware. So, custom middleware is nothing but it is also normal class, but with one constructor parameter that make it special. Okay, so now let's go to Solution Explorer, and what the magic is here, let's go to middleware so we can add our first middleware. Okay, so what all you have to do, you have to say new item, and here Microsoft has given one beautiful item template, right? So what you can do, you can say here let's search for middleware. Okay, here you go, see middleware class. Now this item template that you can use for your creating your custom middlewares. Okay, so let's name it something and say my first middleware. Okay, and add this. So here you go, this is your normal class, no keyword, nothing, that this will be middleware. Over here you will see your constructor with one parameter. So this is important. So this request delegate is a next, which is going to help you to make a call to next delegate, and constructor and one method which is invoke. This method will help you to your custom middlewares. Okay, so now here what we have done before in the app.run, app.use, all those things that you need to do here, whatever you wanted to do, right? So this is you can do. Okay, so now when you use that template, it also gives you this my first middleware extension. So this is just extension of your middleware class. Okay, so what it does, it helps you to inject your middleware into your startup class, but it don't do it magically. It just give you extension method. Okay, use this method to make injection in my startup class, in my configure method. With this extension, see it has that I application builder, this has extension I application builder. So you can go there and say, hey, app.this, and it will get a call. Now, to make a call to this extension, this is your first middleware, what you can do, you can go there, what you can say, hey, hey, this is terminal, so I don't want to call here, I want to call here. So what you can say, app dot, oh my bad, you can say, hey, app, yep, this and dot, use your this method. So use my first middleware and make it method. Right, okay, so for sure it will give error because you have to add that namespace, and here you go. So this is one way you can inject your middleware. Now the other way, there is other syntax also. This is one way. The other syntax that you can say, hey, app dot, again I'm messing up, so let's say app dot and say use something called middleware. Yep, here you go. So middleware, and here you need to put the name of your middleware. So your name was, I guess, this. Yes, your class name. Within this you can put your class name. So this class name is your class that you have created here. See the same syntax, use middleware, right? So this is one way that you can inject your middleware to the configure method. Okay, so now this is how you can create your custom middleware. Now when to use middleware, when there is a need to create middleware, you can create in different ways. First, you can create when you wanted to handle global exception handling. You can create one middleware. From there you can put logs to an application inside. You can create log files. Second, you wanted to perform authentication check. You wanted to perform authorization. All of these things you can create a middleware. So every time, whenever there is a request, it checks if user is authenticated or not, if user has this role or not, because you need to check this for all the API endpoints. So for all those things, you must handle all the global exception at one point. So you can use middleware. Okay, let's go ahead and create one logger with this custom middleware. Okay, so what we will do, we have already something, helper method that I have created a long time back. Here you go. So what I am doing here, I am saying, on this path, create one log, and I have created that custom logic that, do what? Don't do anything, just append the log and, append over the date and dot now, blah, blah. Okay. So what I will do in my middleware, I will over here, in the invoke method, because this is the place where you have to put your custom logic. What I will say, hey, make a call to my helper class. So that's what I will say here, log helper dot, I have to add the namespace here. So let's add a namespace. Now my write log, right? And for sure I need to add some value here. So test log for middleware. So let's say, okay, so this is done. Now whenever you make a call, it will make a call to this. So let's run this application and let's see how it works. So all the middleware should work, right? We have three middlewares. First was injecting something. Let's go to startup class. The first was this one, which was injecting some header response with 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Second middleware is our custom middleware that logging the data into file. Third middleware is this test method that we have created, which is saying just hello world, is facing a response. So we are going to see all this sequence. Okay, so if you notice, the first time when the breakpoint hit, it is when your API endpoint enter to that request pipeline, that middleware. Okay, so this is that call. Before that, let's do one thing. Let's go to log file and clear everything, so we can see how it is logging. Okay, now it would be a more picture clear. So let's continue. Here you go. Again it went to the same breakpoint, your middleware, because this is going back. Now response is going back to your client. Okay, now continue and let's see, there should be two logs. Okay, in the log file, here you go. One is this when it enters, second when it is going back, right? So 2 times it called. Okay, now this is good. Now let's see if all of those middlewares works or not. Okay, so we just saw the second middleware which was creating the log, that works perfectly. This is third middleware which saying hello world every time over here. So this also works perfectly. First middleware that was injecting something in the response header, that we didn't check. We can check that very quickly on that. Now refresh. So my middleware got executed twice. For sure it has to be. Now if you look at over here, you should see here you go, X middleware response 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? So all the middlewares are working fine, right? So this is how you can use custom middleware item template for this. And you know what, you can create your own template, item template, project template, that I've already shared a video. You can go and watch that. Okay, so that's all for today. In next video I will see you with something more interesting.